Welcome to the 35th Annual General Meeting of the Third Age Trust. There will be time for questions when the meeting closes. They can be general questions. When John speaks and does his Treasurer's report, there can be questions after his report from the voting members only. Thank you. Our first item is not quite, you probably have it up here. It is the appointment of tellers. And the tellers are Judy Briggs of Arnold U3A and Jane Matheson of Teesdale U3A. I would like a proposer, please. And would you give your name and your U3A? There. Yes?
Angela Howe Medway.
Thank you. And a seconder? Your name?
Michelle Doran, Amble Valley.
We got that? Thank you. And can we take a vote, please? All those in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you. We go on to... I'm going to give you some statistics, first of all. At present, there are 1,033 U3As, and they have in total votes of 2,104. 214 U3As represented at the conference. Proxies. 235 U3As have sent proxies to the company secretary. 476 votes altogether, because some have multiple votes. There have been no proxy votes for another U3A. In the hall, there are 151 U3As with 186 representatives, making a total of 384 votes. I would now like to receive and approve the minutes of the annual general meeting of the Third Age Trust held on the 31st of August 2017. I need your approval for these minutes, please. Can I have a proposer? Your name? Thank you. A seconder? Yes, please. Thank you. And now, all those in favour, please vote. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you. What's this one? These are the proxies. Right, there have been 431 proxies to approve these minutes. 41 voting people have abstained. Why? The next one is to receive and approve the minutes of the extraordinary general meeting of the Third Age Trust held on the 21st of March 2018. I would like a proposer to approve these minutes, please. Thank you. Gentleman there. Is somebody taking me? Yes. Thank you. A seconder. Down here.
Zuna Inga, Warsaw District.
Thank you. And now, will you please vote? Those in favour? Those against? And anyone abstaining? Right. Can you just hold your hands a little? How many does that look like? 4? Thank you. Were there? Right. And for this one, there were proxies of 426 in favour and 46 abstaining this time. Thank you. Am I on to me? Right. I'll go over here, I think. My report. 3 years have flown, and at the end of my chairmanship, it's inevitable that there are many thank yous to be said, but I'll leave those to the end. Just to reassure you, this report is several pages long, but I won't be addressing you for quite as long as President Putin, or is it Chairman Xi? Being chair of the Trust has been an extraordinary experience. 20 years ago, I joined my local U3A in order to do something different and meet new people. I've certainly done that, but I had no idea that it would take me to Japan, all over the UK, including the Isles of Scilly, Man and Guernsey, to the National Eisteddfod of Wales, to Parliament, and to meet people from other U3As throughout the world, and those who would wish to set up similar organisations in their country. François Vellas, the son of the French founder of the movement, Pierre Vellas, visited us in London, and it was interesting to hear about a very different way of running their organisation. We also met with the president of U3A Australia Online and agreed to develop access to their very useful online resources. I've been amazed at the reception that I've had when visiting U3As, networks and meetings of all sorts. And I know that going out and meeting people has been memorable for all of us and has brought us closer together. I've attended scores of NEC meetings and its offshoot committees over my 7 years as a trustee and have learnt so much about our activities and about our people. To do this job, I think one needs a degree of psychology, not a degree in psychology, although that might be a help. The end result is that I'm more passionate about the organisation and what it brings to people's lives than ever. And I want those who could benefit from joining us to learn about us and about what we do. I also want the outside world to know about us and to recognise us for the part we play in the lives of older people. My campaign for that will continue. So what has been accomplished this year? Each year I tell you that you would be amazed at the hours the trustees give to the movement. I know that there are many in the audience who do just that too, and I hope it is rewarding for them. One example recently was volunteers attending every day for 8 days at the National Eisteddfod of Wales. Utter dedication, and that is what all our volunteers, our trustees and the staff in National Office give to this organisation. When I first came into this job, I felt that I needed to try and dispel the theme of this being a top-down organisation. And the best way was to consult the members more often. So you've been somewhat bombarded into being involved in the consultation on the future of the movement, on the Trust Constitution ending with the AGM in Birmingham, on the Object Clause, by the setting up of Network Link, and above all by inviting members onto the NEC committees. You've certainly had the opportunity to have your say. It's been a tough year for everyone. This year, an AGM was held at Birmingham University in March to approve the new constitution for the Trust. When the Memorandum and Articles of Association were combined, the constitution updated and changes made. That created a huge amount of work for everyone over an extended period. The Object Clause detailing our charitable objectives was amended. This resulted in a great deal of paperwork for U3As, and this was followed by several legal requirements for U3As to observe, the main and most difficult being general data protection regulations. The office, led in this instance by Sophie Wellings, Advice and Volunteering Manager, took Keeping It Legal workshops out to 450 U3As. These are still continuing on a smaller scale so that all U3As may benefit. From what I hear, members describe the dissemination of this information as being top-down. I find this grossly unfair, as following the recent charity scandals, the office staff have gone out of their way to keep members informed on all legal matters involving our members. That is their duty, and that is the duty of the board. If this had not been done, we could find ourselves in the firing line for failing to inform our members. So I would ask that you acknowledge that we are advising you and supporting you in these matters, not imposing these matters on you. Among others, via the Governance Committee and the NEC, we approved policies on safeguarding of vulnerable adults, put together a policy on equality and diversity. We reviewed the roll of honour, updated the information on paid tutors, offered grants for isolated U3As, and updated and reviewed the Trust's risk register. Do I sound as if we're running a business? That is exactly what we are doing. And I haven't even mentioned budgets and reserves, etc. But we are volunteers, assisted very ably by our wonderful office staff, and I think we deserve recognition for what we strive to do. Much time has been spent on our risk strategy, and two major risks, as at March this year, and described in the annual report, have formed a large part of Governance Committee deliberations. One of the major risks was considered to be a lack of long-term strategic plan for the Trust. A working party was set up several months ago to steer this work, and today you will have a further opportunity to hear the progress of the development plan so far. All of the policies mentioned have to go through a process, which means they're usually written either by the office staff or a member of the NEC. They then go to the appropriate committee, then to the NEC for approval. That sounds a smooth operation, but it's far from that, as inevitably amendments are made and the papers are often returned to the Governance Committee several times before they can go on to the NEC and then be passed to the U3As. More and more information will go on the website so that U3As can download according to their needs and situations. But there are certain papers which still have to go to U3As in hard copy. We realise that the timing around Christmas and New Year was unfortunate, but unavoidable. But I know that every effort will be made this year to avoid such an event. There are currently 8 NEC committees: Finance and Governance, Standing Committee for Education, Development Subcommittee, Research, International, Information Communications Technology, and U3A+. We constantly review whether these committees are appropriate to the needs of a growing organisation, and we adjust them accordingly. And they will be moulded according to the findings in the development plan. Our charitable purpose is education. Perhaps we sometimes forget that. Maybe learning is more accurate, and that covers a very broad spectrum. The work of all the committees is related to that object, and that will not change. 16 national learning events were organised at institutions such as the British Library, the National Gallery and the Royal Institution, with over 2,600 attendees. 3 national summer schools were organised in 2017, with all courses led by volunteer tutors. This year we've reverted to 2, one of which has already taken place at Harper Adams University. Much of the work on these is led by Julie Travers, and she deserves a special thank you for these successful endeavours, as do her very able assistants. Sources Online has been launched as a platform for subject advisors, shared learning project coordinators and research ambassadors to share online learning resources for their groups. The hard copy sources will continue until February 2019, and after that, the educational aspects of the movement will be moved to Third Age Matters and online. A national monthly newsletter has been launched to inform individual members about what is happening in the movement and to highlight special events for members. This requires individual members to sign up, but also goes to all U3As. If you have not yet signed up, please do, as it's yet another avenue of communication which has been created to better inform members. Ian McCanna, currently Vice Chairman of the Trust, felt that following the consultation on the future of the movement, members had expressed great interest in networks, which were becoming an integral and active resource for U3As. So he set up Network Link, a forum where groups such as networks, clusters, and any neighbourhood grouping could have a voice. Members generally find these groupings more useful than the larger regions, as they are a local and accessible forum for exchanging views and experiences. Following a review of resources currently being used by members, the Resource Centre service will be changing and undergoing a 6-month transition period to become a resource hub that will include recommendations from members on MOOCs, TED Talks, educational downloads, as well as the traditional DVDs, books and recordings. And also research undertaken by U3A members will be included. The current Resource Centre had a large number of DVDs available, but a relatively small percentage was used, and bookings for these will remain available. Subject advisors will be asked to identify which DVDs should remain part of the future hub. The Trust wishes to thank all those past and present who gave their time, effort and enthusiasm to this service. With the availability of so many courses online, the Trust is considering how best they could bring all these elements together on one online platform in order to provide an educational resource for the members. Work has begun on this and will be progressed in the near future, although it is a very costly project and will require sizable financial resources. I mentioned Third Age Matters and would like to thank Francis Beckett for his years of dedication to the publication. Its readership is the envy of many, many editors. Also, thanks to the members of the editorial board who support Francis so ably. The magazine will undergo a refresher next year, taking into account membership feedback, so look out for that. We have made some very interesting contacts this year, and I trust that some of you will have shared in the workshops organised by Dr. Lynn Corner, who unfortunately was unable to be here, but Helen and Alex ably ran the voice workshops. Also, Carenza Jenkins. I first met Lynn Corner when introduced by John Lloyd 2 years ago. Lynn is Director of Voice, based at the National Innovation Centre for Ageing at Newcastle University. Voice is an organisation that aims to capture the public's vast experience, ideas, expectations and opinions to inform and challenge ourselves and the world around us through opportunities for lifelong learning, in identifying needs and developing solutions for an ageing society and participating in projects and trials. Carenza is Director of the Office of His Royal Highness the Duke of York and is Project Coordinator of IDEA, the Duke of York's Digital Enterprise Award scheme, and is responsible for strategy and delivery of the scheme. A pilot was set up with some U3As to test the scheme, and I hope many more of you have learned about how the scheme can be used in your U3A. The Trust has supported research ambassadors who develop relationships with universities, which has resulted in prestigious programmes such as the Citizen 800 project with the Royal Holloway University of London and the Health Tax projects. The Trust also supported shared learning project coordinators who are currently assisting members to develop local research projects that have a learning outcome. The institutions involved have greatly appreciated the many and varied skills offered by their U3A partners. On the practical side, U3A Plus aims to help support and advise U3As to ensure that all members can access the informal learning and the many activities in their U3As, regardless of impairment or disability. Several members of the U3A Plus committee have disabilities themselves, so are able to directly relate to the problems and solutions. The U3A Plus website offers advice based on experience to help U3As to make it possible for those members to continue to take an active part in the life of their U3A. Whilst the number of new U3As has decreased over the last few years, member numbers continue to rise. A working group has been looking at the gaps in the country to ascertain where it might be possible to seed new U3As in order to provide that information to regional trustees who are most familiar with their regions. On the other hand, some U3As are finding it difficult to encourage members to serve on their committees and require help with strategies to mitigate this problem. To this end, an army of volunteers is being built up to help with matters such as troubleshooting and supporting local U3As, setting up new U3As, working alongside regional trustees and facilitating workshops on U3A-related matters. International links have continued to be forged. Several members went to the IUTA conference in Barcelona this year, when Melanie Nash of South East Leicestershire U3A presented a paper on the delivery of education within U3As in the UK. Members had been asked to submit papers, and Melanie's was chosen for the conference. Yet another example of bringing members into committee activities. China continues to be very interested in both the French and the UK systems. We've had discussions on how it might be possible to set up U3A in the United States by Americans, I hasten to add, not us. Also with an academic from Hungary who was absolutely amazed by what our members achieve. There is enormous interest in U3A UK. We're a volunteer organisation and have thrived because of the hard work and dedication given to the movement by our volunteers. In order to demonstrate how valuable they are, the Trust will commence work towards investing in volunteering, a quality mark that demonstrates that good practice is being achieved in this movement. To all you volunteers, and that is all of you, I want to send you my heartfelt thanks for making this organisation what it is and what it stands for. I know how much time is given by members, and the results are awesome. So please keep on doing it, and please encourage others to join you. Another project which engages the NEC constantly is Beacon. In fact, the IT committee has had little time to do anything else during the past year. Beacon is an incredibly successful project created by members with well over 200 U3As now using it and more waiting to go onto it. Rarely do we hear any criticism of it, so it has obviously answered the needs of many U3As. Assisting with migration onto the system and with ongoing queries, both administrative and technical, we have to thank a band of amazing volunteers. But, and there is a big but, the workload is unsustainable for the lead volunteers in particular. So a review of all aspects of Beacon is therefore being commissioned at present, but meanwhile the search for willing volunteers continues. A staff member has been appointed to cover the technical support aspect of the system. You all have the financial report up to the 31st of March this year, and John will guide you through it. I imagine that in our stakeholders' opinions, we never get it quite right. But the Finance Committee, together with the Finance Manager, CEO, and the whole NEC, apply due diligence in caring for members' money, and many hours are dedicated to getting it right. During the year, we appointed new auditors, Hayes McIntyre, who have left no stone unturned in the process of assisting and advising us on how we should be doing things. I'm pleased to report that nothing major was discovered, and they're helping us in additional areas such as cybersecurity. They recommended that we should have an audit committee, which will be set up by the new NEC elected at this AGM. Kevin Traynor, our finance manager, is working very closely with them. John Ellison has been treasurer for over 6 years, and whereas John never uses 10 words where 150 will do, he is a very astute man, and his observations very profound. When I became chair, I wondered how on earth I was going to cope with John. But as he says, we are very much on the same wavelength in many respects. And whilst I have found him a challenge, I've enjoyed our long discourses and deliberations, and I really thank him for his support and for everything he's done for this organisation. During the last year, I've worked with Sam Morgan and Liz Drury, our communications officer, to consider what steps we might take to raise the U3A profile in the outside world. Not easy, as so often we're ignored by the media, so perhaps the best way is for U3As and networks to attempt to engage their local media by informing them about local activities and achievements. I became very frustrated by this whole matter, as we had previously campaigned to spread the word with only a minimum of success. I spoke to my MP, who suggested a reception in the Palace of Westminster, to which we could invite the great and the good in the world of education and lifelong learning in particular. Sam Morgan had the brilliant idea of setting up a literature review to identify the academic evidence related to the beneficial impact of lifelong learning on ageing well. Following the setting up of local focus groups based around the country, where members described the impact the U3A had on their lives, all the findings were collated and fed into an impact report demonstrating the value of the U3A movement, and so Learning Not Lonely was launched in the Houses of Parliament on the 10th of July this year. The report has been sent to all MPs, educational and healthcare organisations and associated charities, and interest is growing, with invitations to attend open meetings throughout the country to share more information. The report will be used across all communication platforms to influence policymakers at local, regional and national level, and to ensure that increasing numbers of third agers can join us. I want to thank you all for your support throughout my years as chair. It's been overwhelming. I want to publicly thank the incredible staff at National Office, the NEC, and in particular Ian McCanna, who has worked so closely with me over the past year. I confess to Ian that I sit watching TV with my iPad constantly to hand, and sadly, he said he does the same. I've had a wonderful 3 years. I've met the most incredible people who've constantly inspired me with new ideas and huge enthusiasm, and I will miss the stimulation of endless emails. And I hope that I've served the movement well, and I will go on being an ambassador for U3A as long as I am able. I would not be true to myself if I did not bow out on a controversial note. During the many consultations with members, it's been reported to me, and I have heard them myself, and this is the objections to the word university in our name. I have to say, it's never been a problem for me, and I don't think it should be a problem for you. Instead of being negative, let's be positive, but let us understand why we should be positive. Eric Midwinter sees no need for a change, and I think it would be an insult to him to attempt a change. There are also technical and legal reasons anyway why it would be very difficult to change the name. It would be incredibly costly, and why should we spend members' money on such an exercise when your subscriptions could be used much more beneficially? It is our legal name, and Charity Commission is not inclined to grant permission for such a change for the reasons people state. Instead, we need to sell U3A positively. Don't dwell on the name. Tell the world what we do, how U3A has changed the lives of so many people, how they would have been utterly lost without it, how it has changed our lives. Describe what members contribute to the movement. Tell them that we have 424,314 members and 1,033 U3As throughout the UK, and that they should come and give us a try. Encourage them to learn, laugh, and live with us and see the difference it makes to their lives. Thank you. Right, I will now ask John to give his Treasurer's report.
Thank you very much, Pam, for your report and for your kind introduction to my strengths and weaknesses. So what I'm going to do now is to go over not the annual report. There's no point, there would be no sense in me trying to summarise the very detailed annual report which you all had for quite a few days, quite a few weeks, a week or two indeed. And it would be futile and stupid for me to just try and copy that. What I want to do is to try to pick out for you some of the key issues that we've faced in the last year and which we are likely to face in the next few years. And I will do a little bit of discussing the green paper which you all had in your pack. So, let me proceed. A key issue is that we are getting very close to a 3 million a year organisation. Indeed, our predictions for the current financial year is that we will exceed our 3 million in expenditure. We shall certainly be very close to it. But the slide you're seeing now just shows you that in practice, three things occupy all of it. There's the membership subscriptions. This is the income side of things. Membership subscriptions are half. Another 40% or thereabouts comes from the advertisements into third age matters, the inserts, and the direct mail which you pay for. The remaining 400.4 of a million is income from other sources, for instance, summer schools, which you pay for, study days, which you pay for, conference, but not, of course, the AGM, which those who aren't representing new U3As have to pay for. And I would like to welcome the new U3As who get the great honour of coming to conference once, one person only and 1 year only, to welcome them and to hope that they will then continue to come to and take an active part in our organisation. So that's where our 2.85 million pounds comes from this year. Membership is still growing. If you look at the incremental number, sorry, I have to be very careful. People say our membership is growing. It's true, of course. People also quote what our membership is, and that isn't true. Nobody has the faintest idea what our membership is to within a few percent, because all we know, and all we can ever know, is the number of membership subscriptions that are paid to the trust. Now, some people are paying more than one membership subscription. I'm pretty darn certain that some people are not being paid for at all. So there's absolutely no way that I believe the exact numbers. And I would caution you that there's probably several percent of uncertainty. I'm pretty sure that our true number of members is slightly lower, but even that I'm not absolutely confident of. I've got some worries about U3As. Anyway, that's a minor problem. But nevertheless, based on these figures, in other words, dividing the amount of money by £3.50, then you get an answer. And that answer is within errors, is 20,000 extra membership subscriptions have been received by the Trust in each of on average over 3 years, which is in fact the same over the last 10 years, and is not much different for about 12 years. So for some magical reason, completely unknown to me, and I suspect to anybody, the actual membership of the movement grows by 20,000 per year. Don't ask me why. If you know, let me know. I'd love to know. I don't believe you know either. So the next question, and I want to get to slightly more specific matters. And we have this year done a much more careful assessment of the arguments for what our reserves ought to be, because this is a duty on all charities. I'm very well aware that most U3As don't do this, and I'm very well aware that if they did, the vast majority of our U3As would be horrified about the size of their capitation fees, because the only thing you can do if you're getting too much money is to reduce your membership fees. And if U3As are charging more than they need to run, they shouldn't be charging it. Anyway, that's an aside. But reserves, we did quite a careful exercise, and the way we did it was to consider the sort of thing that could result of really bad happenings. A complete failure, a serious failure on the Trust's part, a complete collapse in confidence in the Trust, all occurring at bad times of year. The risks are completely different at different times of year, causing and trying to then shut down activities without getting yourselves into going bankrupt. Because that's the one thing we don't want to do, is to go bankrupt. So if you do that, we did it independently. Two of us did it independently, both of us with some financial knowledge. I was one. And the other was another trustee who is well experienced in these areas. By a sheer miracle, I don't claim this is reality to reality, we came almost to the same answer. I mean, by almost, I mean within the £20,000 level. And remember, we're now talking about a £3 million organisation. I don't believe that this was genuine. I mean, our accuracy is nothing like that. But nevertheless, it did give us quite a bit of confidence that probably the numbers weren't complete nonsense. And we did them in different ways, doing things quite differently, and for perfectly good. And we then discussed the reason. We could see how we'd got the same answer by allowing for different things down different routes, and I think it really was genuine. So overall, the answer is that we've now revised, and the NEC has agreed that the reserves policy is now 6 months. That the reserve should be between 4 and 6 months. 4, we believe, is enough at the moment, but we think if it gets above 6, we should be thinking of reducing a membership fee. I don't think there's any danger of that. Because the reserves in 17-18 have actually decreased by £57,000. Now remember that as we're a growing organisation, to keep the reserves at the same number of months' expenditure, we actually need a positive number. So this £57,000 negative is quite significant. It does mean that our reserve, which a couple of years ago were 6 months, are now only 5. And there is, if our budget is accurate this year, it could be down to as little as 4 months at the end of this year. So we're not that comfortably in the black. But I don't think we would need to worry too much, but I just think it's wise to point that out. Expenditure, all the facts are in the annual report you have. The summary is also shown on the green sheet that you all got, including the budget. And you will notice that both of from this we both for the actual for the financial year ending on the 31st of March this year, and for the financial year currently, which we're currently 5 months into, a deficit of somewhere around £60,000 is the facts or the predictions. But it's still only a 2% deficit, so we're not in any panic situation of any sort. I would remark that past history suggests that our accuracy in doing budgeting is also about 2%. But there's an interesting feature, and I don't know whether it'll continue, but there's an interesting feature that over all my previous 6 years out of being treasurer, the 5 years of being treasurer, and in the year before that, when we had no treasurer for most of the year and I was chairman of the Finance Committee, we always went, the expenditure was always under the budget. This year the expenditure has been greater than the budget. So if that happened again next year, it might be a little bit more interesting, and action might well need to be taken in a year's time. I want to comment just on a few key points of the budget now. You'll know straight away from what the information I've given already that magazines are one of our big areas, £1 million sort of order. The staff and associated costs are then a vast fraction of the rest. But then there are a few areas which I want to comment on in a little bit more detail, which are consequences of the digital age. And we have got to accept that we are in a digital age, and if we try to pretend that digitisation and digital age aren't with us, we shall rapidly get into terrible trouble, particularly with the new members. And if we are not digital, the new members say, right, not much else. So I will say a little bit about that. So let me go quickly through the magazine situation. It's a growth area, and it's an odd situation where every time a larger fraction of the people take TAM, this automatically increases our loss, which is a shame. And we're hoping that the action that has been taken, the decisions that have been taken, which Pam has told you about, will have a major effect on this, and we believe that that next year things should be, even the current year won't be much affected because these things are all long-term effects. But we believe that the financial year starting in April 2019, that the whole situation will look much more healthy. But the present facts are that the total income of TAM plus sources is 1.04 million, and the present expenditure is 1.17 million. Now that is, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not suggesting it's wrong, it's just simply a fact. The Trust values its print material, and we believe that it is for the present and probably for many years to come will be a key tool for communicating between members. We know very, very well, and we completely agree with the sentiment that many members value having both print and digital communication. For some purposes they want digital, for other purposes they want print. Some want only print, some want only digital. That's a fact of life. And we've done quite a bit of sounding externally, talking to agents of various sorts about the value that will be is placed on TAM. And they assure us, and we agree with them, that they believe that as far as they can see, it has a bright future despite the inevitable and in many ways beneficial advances of digital. So don't think that there's any danger of us dropping print magazines. There isn't. So where are we going? We're publishing 2 magazines at present, and you can see from my previous slide, this in fact involves a contribution. Don't call it a loss. It isn't a loss. It's a contribution from general funds to the provision of printed material. And that's a simple statement of fact. the thing we want, but we are making changes. Pam has outlined them. I've put them here just to make life simple. TAM will continue. Part of sources is going to migrate into a special section of TAM, which I think will make it more accessible to more people. The number of pages of TAM per edition won't change. Some material from TAM to make way for the material from sources will go online. Some material from sources will move into sources online, and sources online we've started doing that even now, and there'll be a continuous process during the current year, and we believe that this will result in quite a substantial change in the situation next year. So that's the situation on that. Inevitably, the next, and this is true of every organisation, every charity, every business, everything pretty well, the next biggest item is always got to be staff costs, and particularly with a service organisation like we are, this is bound to be much the biggest one. And it is charities in general are finding life quite tough in these days. It's partly the charity sector's own fault. As we all know, there have been far too many unpleasant scandals in recent years, not, thank goodness, from us. And I don't think I can't see any way in which we're very much at risk of it, provided we don't do anything really stupid. And I'm sure nobody in this room would ever consider the possibility of doing anything really stupid. So therefore, what I would suggest is that they do impact on us, and there is no doubt that the various misdemeanours that have taken place have made life much harder for us. We're much more under scrutiny. Regulations on data protection, dispute resolution, safeguarding are all more onerous. And this is one of the reasons why our workshops have had to be increased a lot on these areas. And indeed, this whole area has consumed a lot of staff time, and this has required, without any doubt and question, the skills of the office have had to be enhanced and both enhanced and modified in a way, and retraining and all sorts of things had to happen to make sure that this support was available. And it's an inevitable consequence of increased staff costs. I now want to come on to my last items, which are these consequences of the digital age. Funding, just to explain for those who don't know about it, the funding for Beacon was approved about 2 years ago. And the idea was that we would charge 50p per member put onto the Beacon per year, with a view to this as a stab in the dark. And the argument at that time was that initially it was certainly going to cost us more than 50p per member. There was no question about that. So initially it would involve a contribution from the trust into the Beacon budget to get the thing off the ground. At the same time, we believe, we could, as far as we could judge at that time, and it's probably still true, that over a lengthy period, we would try and make it cost neutral. In other words, we'd collect our 50p's. Initially, we'd have to put a bit more money in. Later on, the general funds would be repaid the amounts. This was clearly a situation which we had to assume, because it would be quite wrong, and you would howl at us. I know you would, probably, and rightly. If we started to spend large amounts of money on anything which is not used by a very large fraction of the U3A movement, and if we had no idea how popular Beacon would be, no idea at all. In fact, of course, it's turning out to be incredibly popular, and although we had kittens many times about Beacon and its costs at various stages during the year, I think all of us have been very, very pleasantly surprised by the success of the whole operation. And I would like to join with Pam in expressing the debt of gratitude we owe to the originator, John, and to the band of others who have taken on the mantle and have had a ridiculous overload of work, particularly recently with the large number of people coming on, the increasing requirements for data protection, the increasing requirements for security, and all the rest of it. And there have been the odd panic occasionally, but there's been no security breaches as far as we can possibly tell. And as far as we can tell, and one or two that were identified as possible ones are now being closed. So we are now feeling much more relaxed that Beacon is a good place. So don't worry too much about Beacon. It's inevitable with a situation of this sort. It's a big new project. It's clearly going to be very important to the movement because a quarter of our U3As nearly are in it already. And so it's big business. And it's a big IT project. And I can't believe that, I'm sure that up to now we've shown that we're better than governments are at implementing big IT projects, so there's no problems. So, a word or two on Site Builder. I'm on time, you're all right. Word or two on Site Builder. This one is one which has done well over history, and it is now needing some development. This will have to be kept under review. The Trust website, Pam has already referred to, and this is a big one which is going to hit us. Exactly when it's going to hit us, I don't know. But it is a major item. I thought it was right that I should point out that it is a major item, and Pam emphasised as well. So membership subscriptions, we have to look 18 months ahead. So here and now, all I can do is to say that there will be no increase in the membership fee of £350 per pennies, 350 pennies, 1.5 cups of coffee in April 2019. You'll hear a lot more about the Trust future plans this afternoon when Ian is going to, and with a panel, is going to discuss this, and you'll hear a lot more about it. And indeed, that will be your time to talk about the future. Don't ask me about the future. I'm DMOP happy. So thanks to everybody. You, a small fraction of our army of volunteers, U3As, networks, regions, national, and you're 99+% of the movement's resources. The £3 million is peanuts compared with the true value, if you valued it in any rational way that the world in general would use. It's absolutely peanuts. Our 3 million is peanuts compared with that, with the value, if you monetize any way you imagine. And I would like to thank all the current officers in particular, Pam, Ian, Michaela, all the other trustees, not just the present row on the front row, but the previous front rows in my 6 years now as treasurer, and indeed my 2.7 years before that as Northwest Regional Trustee. So I've been around this place now for 8.7 years. And there is it. I hope to keep in touch, and thank you. Now, I know we haven't much time, but if there are any urgent and important questions, I'm perfectly prepared to have a go at answering them.
You do realise that lunch is dependent upon
Oh, yes. You won't get, if you ask too many, you won't get any lunch. Yes, man of detail. That's brilliant. Unique. Okay, I can now move on to my next duty.
You propose.
Yes, we've now to make a proposal. I will now formally propose that. Oh, there's a question, sorry. Can you give your name, please?
Yeah. Hello, John. It's Jeff Daw, Weeside U3A.
Yeah.
My question is related to the annual report and accounts that was published signed on the 28th of June.
Yep.
And in it, you state on page 7 that the future plan under the strategic aim 1 to support learning in U3As there will be a review of the resources centre to assess the service delivery model and the types of resources U3As will need in the future.
Yep.
And we've received this now, and this is the first sight I'm sure all our members have seen of this, and you refer to it as the plans for the future. And yet, we discover now that not only has there been decisions made, but the staff have been dismissed. So all the resources staff who've been there for quite some years, including the manager for 15 years, have suddenly been dismissed, made redundant. Could you explain why it's such a sudden movement in that decision-making?
Sorry, there's a misunderstanding. The report you're talking about is the report for the financial year, which ended at the end of March this year. At the end of that, the process of considering this, the whole problem was under consideration, and no decision had at that point been taken. So the decision to restructure the resource operation in the way that Pam has outlined was taken post that date. So there's no way that that could be in that report. This is your first chance to tell you about this. The actual logic of that will be justified and will be given, of course, in detail in next year's annual report, because that's the annual report that refers to the data from the 1st of April 2018. So that's all I can say at that point.
Okay. I'm just disappointed it's been answered.
Okay, that's fair enough. Okay, so can I now...
There is another
John.
question. Are you allowing further questions? Or?
If there are any more, yes. Sure.
It's up to the chair.
Thank you. Ruth Dove, Wearside, U3A. Well, I've got several questions that have been put forward by members, so I'll just see how long you allow me to go on. First of all,
do
on
them one at a
page-
time, please.
I'll do one at a time and then see what you
Yeah,
say,
sure.
until you say, be quiet, Ruth. It's been said before. On page 22, section 6, the cost of merchandise is £31,936 and the income from it is £61,312 on section 4. This seems to be generating a substantial amount of money, so why have we reduced the range of products on sale?
Oh, yes. The situation on that is that that is the cost of doing them. It is not the real cost of the exercise, because remember, in the annual report, things like TAM are actually the cost of staff are brought into the TAM costs, but all the rest of the staff costs for all the other activities are all in the staff costs. And the actual cost of running the merchandising is certainly very substantial. So I think that this profit is pretty notional. I've made attempts over the years to try to assess. It's not easy to do because it's bits of work for lots of people over the time. And my assessment is that if you consider them at a net, the thing is probably not just about cost neutral.
Thank you.
Actually, can I just add something to that? The office staff have been incredibly busy over this last period. And there certainly will be new products on sale. And if you have any suggestions about those new products, I'm sure that the staff would like to hear about them. I know some suggestions have been made. It has merely been impossible to actually bring those into force at the moment.
I suggest we give you one more question and then we'll then finish wrap up, which is quite quick. But
Thank you. Thank you. Well, the next one is page 22, item 3, charitable activities income money collected from mailing, TAM and sources has increased by 52,284, but the advertising revenue has only increased by £40,380. The budget for 2018 to 19 shows direct mailing up by 94,000 and advertising only up by 40,000. So will the Trust consider adopting a more advantageous advertising strategy?
I'll answer that one very quickly. Please suggest what this advantageous strategy would be, because we'd love to know about it.
Thank you.
Okay, so I now proceed. It is my pleasure now to recommend to you that you accept the annual report as published in this document.
Can we have a seconder, please? Thank you. And now we take a vote. All those in favour, please. Better take a moment. Those against? Abstentions?
Oh, that's...
Thank you.
Am I right? Isn't
Thank
it?
you.
No abstentions?
No. All right,
That's
leave it
absolutely
there.
brilliant.
Auditors.
Yeah. Okay, so my last and very pleasant duty is to recommend the reappointment of our new auditors, Hayes McIntyre. You only appointed them, of course, at the AGM in March this year, but I've been very impressed with their performance, and I would certainly encourage you to reappoint them, and I hereby propose that we reappoint our existing auditors, Hayes McIntyre, for a further year.
A seconder, please. Are you going to second?
Yes?
Thank you.
Okay.
Ian Fennell.
Ian Fennell.
Fetcham.
Yeah. Okay, those in favour? Those against? Abstentions? Brilliant.
Thank you.
Okay, over to you, Pam.
Thank you. It's my great pleasure to announce the appointment of a chairman, a vice chairman, and a treasurer to serve for the next 3 years. And Ian McCanna is the new chairman. He had 514 votes. Hilary Jones is the vice chairman with 519 votes. And in the election for treasurer, Graham Clark had 188 votes and Richard Tier had 460 votes. So Richard is appointed the new treasurer. Then the appointment of 3 regional trustees to serve as ordinary directors. The 3 regions were the East Midlands, Wales and Northern Ireland. For the first year, there has been the opportunity for the directors to be elected for a further year and then possibly another year. So this has been the first time that this has happened. So I'll begin with Rosemary Bradley, has been re-elected in Northern Ireland with 6 votes. I expect people imagined that she was going to be there anyway. In Wales, the election was between Carol Loughlin, who had 16 votes, and Christine Winner, who had 23 votes. So Christine is the new trustee for Wales. And the election in the East Midlands, Bill Rayner had 32 votes, Jane Pavia had 39 votes, and Jean Hogg had 45 votes. So Jean Hogg is the new East Midlands trustee. I think that's all on that. So as my very last duty, I would like to formally close this annual general meeting. Thank you.